Welcome, guys, back to another review. This time is on The Smashing Machine, starring Dwayne Johnson and Emily Blunt. I'm sorry, guys. I know I've been away since our last review I did on the Demon Slayer movie that came out a couple weeks ago. I wanted to see this movie, The Smashing Machine, starring Dwayne Johnson and Emily Blunt. Everybody was saying this is one of Dwayne Johnson, you could say, breakout roles, where it's not the same movie you would see him do all the time, where he's the big guy, the 90s action hero back in the day, where we just big dude fighting. This is really a movie that he really has to get into this character, and he's playing Mark Kerr. This is in the early stages of, you would say, the UFC. This is way before the UFC became even what it is now, a multi-billion-dollar company. This is like really the beginning of like the lowest, not the lowest, but of the early stages of the UFC, or the in-ring fighting, basically. And Dwayne Johnson is playing a character named Mark Kerr. He's basically, you can say he's like almost the foundation of what we have now, the UFC. And it goes through his life between around 1997 and 2000, where he's basically kind of in his prime, because all the wrestling, they didn't make a lot of money at the time, these mixed martial arts and everything. They didn't make a lot of money, so every fight had to count. They kind of had to win and make a name themselves. And he's fighting mainly as overseas, where it's popular at the time mostly. And he's playing Mark Kerr, where he has a drug issue. His girlfriend, played by Emily Blunt, is going through with him as well. And you can see the battle he's going through, where he has the drugs. He's trying to fight. He's trying to hold his composure. And what is good about this movie, it shows that Dwayne Johnson, or The Rock, really tries to pull out his acting styles, the way he's acting, the way he's emoting emotions, things like that. It's not about nothing but about this is brute strength, but his mental stage, what he's going through, and it sees that. And you can see how it affects him and his girlfriend as well, played by Emily Blunt, where it's having a hard time coping with his drug and his addictions and his fighting. What his priorities are, is mainly with doing the drugs and with the fighting. He's trying to make a career for himself, and it looks like almost where Emily is taking care of him, played by his girlfriend, but also she can see where it takes him with his drugs and everything, where he kind of disconnects from her and he just focuses on what he's doing and really not mainly opening up towards her, or really engaging with her how she wants it. She feels like she's closed out of his life, basically, and the only thing that matters is the wrestling and not really her, and she feels disconnected from him. And he feels frustrated that she's not understanding what he's getting from this, where he loves the fighting, but he loves how everybody cheers for him. That in one scene, he trying to explain to her where it gives almost as like orgasmic, where people is cheering his name, people is yelling him, and it just feels good. And he just feels like she's not understanding, and she just feels like she's trying to, but also he feels like she's not really taking it serious, like he's trying to take it serious. And it shows the journey of his life, where he did the drugs, had issues, but also he has to take away from that and try to really focus on the fighting. You can tell how it takes a brutal toll on him with the beating and the fighting and the pain and the hurt that he gets from this. And it takes a lot, and it shows that it has a lot of powerful moments of in this movie, especially near the third act, of him and his girlfriend, played by Emily Blunt, where they just they're arguing and she just not understanding. She's like, feel like, oh, am I a distraction from you? Am I not supposed to be with you? And he's trying to tell her that, hey, the thing that you're doing is kind of setting me back as well, when I'm trying to maybe try to recover, try to be better, and try not to fall back. And she felt like she feels like, oh, I'm just a problem, you can't open up to me. So it seems like a lot of back and forth, not a lot of understanding. She just feels like she's displaced with him and not really in his world. Since that's what she feels like. She feels like he's not opening it up. She felt like he was more open up or more calm when he took his drugs, or took his stories that he needed to use. Then he finally he finally tried to stop. But what Dwayne Johnson did very well is that he really put himself into this character. He you don't see the wrestler, you don't see the Rock. You really see this character he's playing, Mark Kerr. You really see his training. You really see how this really matters to him. And I think The Rock also really fits in this as well, because, you know, he was a wrestler. He came up in a wrestling family. He started out, you know, young and worked his way up, you know. So even though it's UFC, and as we know, UFC and WWE is kind of, you know, together and everything. So he kind of really can, you know, understand what Mark Kerr was going through, where, you know, this is wrestling, this is his life, this is what he is, this is what he am, this is who defines me as a person. You can see The Rock, or, you know, Dwayne Johnson, really get into that character, really mesh with it, and understanding that this is what it is. This is what makes me a man. This is who I am. This is a man's sport, you know, at the time, and this is what makes me as a person. And, you know, Dwayne really gets into that. He really understands that, and you can see that. It almost just felt like, you know, even though it's a movie, you feel like by looking at Dwayne Johnson, you can see that, oh, this is him. This is his element. You know, the people cheering in the crowd, but also getting beat, the bruises, the hurt, the time away from the family, not able to have a family. You know, you have to really struggle. You have to really work hard. And Dwayne really puts it out there. He really shows his vulnerability in this movie as well, where he's trying to be better. He's trying to cut out the drugs. He's trying to make a name for himself in this world where it's still new, it's still young, and still fresh. And it sees that it's frustrating. You know, it's one scene in the movie where the news reporter's talking to him, and he's asking him, you know, how would it feel to lose? And Dwayne he played Mark Kerr. He's like, I really can't answer that question, because, you know, at the time, Mark Kerr, he would always win. He didn't lose, and he was just like, I really can't answer. You know, it's like, I'm sorry, I really can't answer that question, because I never lose. I always win. And, you know, you can see he really tried to give him an honest answer, but that was the answer he can give at that time. Then you see as he goes through it in his matches, you see that it's devastating, where the outcomes he has in some of his matches when he loses, you can see that takes a toll on him, because he never really understood. Because in mixed martial arts, in this UFC fighting, it's all about boxing and jiu-jitsu and all that, everything in it, you know. And Mark Kerr's really a grappler. He's really just a wrestler. To see him go through that and see how, you know, Dwayne Johnson really puts himself in this movie, and really intrigued me. Emily Blunt and Dwayne Johnson, they played movies before. I think they did Jungle Cruise as well. They really have good chemistry when they're together and they're acting with each other. It's done very well. You can see the emotions. You can see how they do love each other. You can see how she loves him. She wants the best for him. She just wants to be more part of his world. And sometimes he felt like that could be a distraction. You know, a lot. You know, and that a lot of little things maybe bothers him, especially when he came off, you know, the drugs and everything. But every time that him and Amy Blunt are on the scene together, they just mesh well. So they mesh well, very good. They have very powerful scenes when they're arguing, where they're going back and forth with each other, when they love each other, when there's sadness and they're crying, and they do very well. Their chemistry, it was phenomenal. I enjoyed it. Every time they're on the scene and they're talking and they're having their back and forth, I enjoyed all of that. The movie's about 2 hours, I think 2 hours and 20 minutes long. Now, at times, the movie can slow down. The pacing can drag at times a lot, you know, in certain scenes. Sometimes it felt like, all right, can we just move along? And it felt long, sometimes drawn out at times. The fighting scenes were done very well. Sometimes I felt like it was rushed, but, you know, that's probably how maybe UFC is. Sometimes it could be just quick, like boom, 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 and it's done. I really don't watch as much, but, you know, like I said, you know, it starts out kind of, you know, boom, you're there in a fighting, then it kind of slows down in the second act, and the pacing kind of drags, and sometimes in some points I felt kind of bored. Now, looking at my phone as well, and sometimes I felt dry, you know, because, you know, it wasn't as much talking in certain scenes. It was just a lot of, you know, shots and things that's happening, not a lot of dialogue in some points of the movie. And it felt dry at times, and it felt like, okay, they could have cut this movie out. This movie's longer than what it needed to be. I felt like the movie could have been an hour and 45 minutes, cutting out a lot of things that wasn't necessary, a lot of scenes in the movie that wasn't necessary. I just felt long and dragged out, and felt bored at some points, until we got to the fight scenes and him and Emily Blunt scenes, things like that. You know, and I felt this movie could took about 30 minutes. Could have took out 30 minutes of this movie, but all in all, it just shows that The Rock is trying something different, and I like that. It's showing that I'm more just this big dude and this action hero. I can show emotions. I can be that actor, you know, that once they play these different roles, I really can get into that character, and he shows that. And I commend The Rock, or Dwayne Johnson, for just letting it go and just falling and getting into this character. And he sees that he really got into this character, and I enjoy that. I enjoy that from this and from him, that he's really trying that he really, his mindset is really getting into this character, really understanding that the character's drug addiction, that he loves fighting, that's his life, that's who he is, that's what makes me a man. I'm trying to provide for my family, I'm trying to make money, I'm trying to become somebody, make a name for myself. And that's Dwayne Johnson. That's who he is, and he's able to portray that, showing what Mark Kerr was going through, what he was trying to do in the early stages of the UFC, and I enjoyed that. This is a good movie. I think everybody should go see it. You know, it's not a perfect movie. No movie is perfect, but I said this movie did drag on a lot. That's why I give this movie a 3.5 out of 5. I felt like the movie just went too long. A lot of scenes were unnecessary. It got boring at times. It felt stale at a lot of points until you got to the point of fighting, or when you have him and Emily Blunt talking in scenes. That's when it picked up. But other than that, I still enjoy it. Everyone should go see it. This is a movie. I feel like this is a breakout movie for Dwayne Johnson, showing that, hey, I'm an actor. I'm here. I did all the action movies, all the goofy movies. Now let me establish myself as this actor, and I can do more. I can emote more than just the action and fighting, which he probably still do, but I think this is a stage of him getting to the point where now I'm an actor, and I can see he being nominated for an Oscar. I can really see that. And this is Oscar season coming up. A lot of movies are gonna be dropping pretty soon. The movie is well directed. Now at some points I felt like the camera editing, and it was off at some time, especially different scenes of the movie. But I don't want to nitpick. But this is a good movie. If you're a Dwayne Johnson fan, you should go see this. If you're a fan of the UFC fighting and just seeing it at his raw stages, you should go see it. If you want to see good acting, especially from Emily Blunt and Dwayne Johnson, go see this movie. You will not be disappointed from that perspective of the movie. I enjoyed it for what it was. I'm glad to see The Rock doing something different. I'm glad that he really able to put himself out there and just really show that, hey, I am an actor, and I enjoy that. If you saw The Smashing Machine, tell me what you thought about it. Tell me what you thought about Dwayne and Emily Blunt. The chemistry was phenomenal. It was enjoyable to watch them both just really go at each other, love each other, sadness and all that. That was good. Leave a comment below. Tell me what you thought about it. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share this, guys. Until the next review, guys, peace.